Picture a quiet, sunlit stretch of the River Medway in the middle of the day. A lone motorcruiser glides toward a sleepy Kent marina, looking like nothing more than a routine weekend escape. But beneath the calm surface of this tranquil scene lay the foundation for the most extensive illicit firearms operation ever dismantled on British soil. The individuals on that boat believed they were ushering in a new era of subterranean dominance, entirely unaware that the surrounding tree line concealed a highly coordinated network of covert investigators watching their every move. This is the baffling mystery of a maritime drop meant to stay hidden, and the meticulous investigative work that brought an ambitious syndicate to its knees. The architect of this staggering ambition was not your typical underworld kingpin. 25-year-old Harry Schilling, operating out of Swanley, Kent, possessed no flashy cars and lacked a loud, intimidating reputation. What he did possess was an insatiable desire for scale. Schilling understood a fundamental truth about the clandestine economy: narcotics could generate substantial capital, but true influence, the kind that commands absolute authority and unwavering compliance, required undeniable leverage. He firmly believed that importing sophisticated, high-capacity hardware was the ultimate key to unlocking that profound level of control. Schilling knew a vision of this magnitude required a tightly knit, fiercely loyal syndicate. He systematically formed a highly insulated triad to execute his master plan. Enter Michael Dufresne, a 30-year-old from Bexley Heath, who served as the critical bridge to elusive suppliers operating deep within the European continent. Rounding out the core was 24-year-old Richard Rye, the indispensable courier and logistical runner, who kept the intricate machinery of their enterprise communicating efficiently. Together, they represented the perfect illicit triangle: the financier with the vision, the international liaison with the contacts, and the ground-level facilitator ensuring everything remained in constant motion. Their strategy was chillingly straightforward, yet unprecedented in its sheer audacity. They purposefully bypassed the standard, low-level channels for basic sidearms. Instead, their sights were set on heavily decommissioned, military surplus languishing in Eastern Europe. The objective was to secure these neutralized assets, fund their clandestine reactivation, and quietly transport the highly operational cargo across the English Channel via civilian waterways. Schilling was completely uninterested in small-scale transactions or amateur equipment. He was meticulously determined to secure the kind of sophisticated capability that enterprises would pay exorbitant sums to acquire, setting the stage for an unparalleled investigation that would ultimately change the landscape of British law enforcement. The acquisition phase of their grand design began not in the shadows of a metropolis, but in the unassuming industrial town of Partizanske, Slovakia. Schilling's syndicate bypassed traditional black markets, opting instead for a perfectly legal corporate entity known as AFG. This supplier specialized in acoustic expansion hardware, authentic military-grade equipment, neutralized by a single pin drilled through the barrel. Under regional legislation, purchasing these items was entirely lawful, yet to a criminal enterprise, they were merely a few strategic modifications away from becoming highly operational once again. Their meticulously curated inventory included 22 Verzid 58 assault rifles, which closely mirror the renowned AK-47, alongside 9 compact Scorpion machine pistols previously utilized by elite tactical units. The financial mechanics of this endeavor were truly staggering. Procured for less than £120 each, these deactivated units held an illicit resale value of up to £4,000 once restored to their original capacity. This was not a modest collection. It was a comprehensive arsenal accompanied by 58 magazines, 1,500 rounds of live ammunition, and 2 suppressors. The profoundly disturbing reality was that this exact European supply chain had been utilized in a severe international tragedy just 6 months prior. Restoring the hardware required no specialized engineering background. A simple metal rod and a heavy hammer were sufficient to dislodge the restrictive pin, allowing the weapons to seamlessly chamber and discharge heavy, rapid-fire rounds designed to effortlessly pierce structural cover. To transport this devastating cargo, the syndicate completely avoided commercial freight, recognizing the exceptionally high risk of border inspection. Instead, Schilling financed the quiet acquisition of a 38-foot motorcruiser named the Albanina. purchased under a fictitious identity and more discreetly in Boulogne-sur-Mer, France, the pristine white and blue vessel raised absolutely no bureaucratic red flags. To helm the craft, they recruited 43-year-old David Payne, a seasoned maritime navigator with a flawless background and zero prior convictions, ensuring the voyage appeared as nothing more than a standard recreational trip. Yet, as Payne prepared to guide the Albanina across the channel, a massive, invisible net was already closing around them. The National Crime Agency, heavily supported by international intelligence from Europol and allied European authorities, had been quietly monitoring the syndicate's metadata. They weren't intercepting the exact conversations, but the distinct patterns of geographic movement and encrypted pings painted an undeniable picture of a major impending transfer. On the 10th of August, the heavily laden vessel departed the French coastline, setting a direct course for the River Medway. Beneath the polished deck, sealed tightly within ordinary sports holdalls, lay an extraordinary cache of deactivated hardware. The syndicate's operational blueprint was elegantly simple: dock without drawing public attention, transfer the sensitive cargo swiftly, and vanish. However, they were far from isolated on the water. The National Crime Agency was meticulously tracking the cruiser's every nautical mile. Law enforcement deliberately chose not to intercept the boat mid-channel, understanding that a premature raid would instantly alert the broader network and scatter the core conspirators. Instead, they allowed the high-stakes chess game to organically unfold. Just after midday on the 11th of August, the Albanina slipped quietly into the waters of Cuxton Marina in Kent. The skipper, David Payne, secured the vessel and calmly stepped ashore, flawlessly projecting the relaxed demeanor of a returning holidaymaker. Minutes later, the gentle stillness of the marina was interrupted as an unmarked white transport van pulled into the adjacent lot. Two individuals, Christopher Owen and Matthew Smale, emerged from the vehicle. Both men were already wearing heavy-duty gloves, a suspicious detail that spoke volumes about their anticipation of the cargo. From a heavily concealed vantage point across the river, covert tactical teams had their high-resolution lenses focused precisely on the transaction. The ensuing handover was a masterclass in silent logistical efficiency. Heavy, tightly zipped bags were passed continuously from the rocking deck into the waiting van. There was absolutely no casual conversation, nor any wasted movement, just the methodical transfer of contraband. Throughout this tense sequence, the authorities steadfastly held their ground, refusing to prematurely spring the meticulously crafted trap. Investigators needed the entire chain of custody fully documented. They required the visible faces, the transport vehicles, and the undisputable visual proof of the syndicate's clear intent captured permanently on their surveillance feeds. Payne lingered near the waterfront, completely oblivious to the unseen observers documenting his every move. As the final holdall was secured and the doors slammed shut, the crucial phase of the drop concluded exactly as planned for the smugglers. The vehicle navigated away from the water's edge with a payload designed to drastically alter the criminal landscape. They genuinely believed they had outsmarted border security, but as the van turned onto a secluded rural track just outside Cuxton, they were about to discover the snare was already tightly drawn. Barely had the transport van navigated the narrow, rural pathways outside Cuxton, when the illusion of their success instantly shattered. With absolute precision, heavily armed tactical units boxed the vehicle in, offering zero warning and eliminating any avenue of escape. Inside, Christopher Owen and Matthew Smale sat motionless, their gloved hands still resting near the sealed holdalls. The authorities seized the pristine cache on the spot, the contents entirely untouched. Simultaneously, back at the waterfront, the seasoned skipper, David Payne, was quietly taken into custody before he could even process that the operation had unraveled. The primary physical evidence was now safely secured. Miles away in an Orpington retail car park, Harry Schilling, Michael Dufresne and Richard Rye were actively preparing for the distribution phase. Unaware of the interception, Schilling and Dufresne purchased heavy-duty spades and robust industrial bags items investigators later deduced were intended to temporarily conceal the illicit hardware. Before they could load their supplies, the perimeter collapsed. As undercover officers rapidly descended, the contrast in their reactions was striking. The ambitious Schilling turned instantly pale, visibly trembling and struggling for oxygen as the gravity of his situation dawned. Dufresne maintained a chilling, stoic composure during his detention. Rye, sensing the sudden shift, instinctively slipped away through the expansive lot, seeking refuge inside a nearby fast food establishment. Security footage captured his frantic final moments, pacing erratically and desperately attempting to purge data from his device. A plainclothes operative smoothly finalized the arrest, with zero commotion. The physical apprehensions provided the individuals and the cargo, but the undeniable backbone of the prosecution lay hidden within their pockets. Each key conspirator carried a customized mobile handset, shielded by military-grade PGP encryption, a sophisticated system engineered to render communications completely untraceable. Recognizing the extreme complexity of this digital fortress, the National Crime Agency transported the seized devices to an elite cyber forensic unit in Canada. After months of painstaking excavation, the international analysts successfully breached the vault. The extracted chat logs were profoundly damning. The syndicate communicated using remarkably transparent codes, discussing pricing and future shipments of inventory. Messages from Schilling boasting about their newly cemented status, alongside precise GPS metadata, perfectly synchronized with the physical surveillance footage. The encrypted technology, meticulously designed to protect their enterprise, ultimately provided investigators with an irrefutable roadmap to their downfall. When the heavy courtroom doors finally closed, the sheer volume of undeniable evidence presented by the prosecution was overwhelming. Jurors were not merely looking at a theoretical risk. They were staring directly at the largest fully operational hardware seizure in modern British law enforcement history. The authorities laid the grim reality out with chilling clarity. These were not decorative antiques or harmless replicas. These were rapidly discharging, military-grade instruments completely primed for distribution across busy city networks. The jury watched in absolute silence as the grainy, black-and-white surveillance footage played across the monitors. They witnessed the synchronized, gloved hands at Cuxton Marina, the swift loading of the transport van, and the subsequent tactical interception that secured the pristine, uncompromised holdalls before they could vanish. The syndicate's defense strategies quickly crumbled under the massive weight of their own digital footprints. David Payne, the seasoned maritime navigator, attempted to claim total ignorance regarding the vessel's illicit cargo. Matthew Smale suggested he genuinely believed they were merely moving unregulated botanicals. Yet, the physical surveillance, combined with the forensic extraction of their encrypted devices, left absolutely zero room for plausible deniability. The courtroom was methodically walked through every GPS ping, every coded transaction, and every boastful message sent by Harry Schilling. The prosecution meticulously connected the timeline, proving that this was not an isolated transport event, but the dawn of a highly scalable enterprise. The presiding judge delivered a harrowing final assessment, noting the immense potential for widespread tragedy had this arsenal reached its intended destination. The verdicts were delivered with swift finality, and the subsequent sentencing echoed the unprecedented severity of their ambition. Harry Schilling, identified as the primary architect, was handed an immense 35-year term. Michael Dufresne, the critical European broker, received 27 years. Richard Rye, the agile courier whose phone placed him at every pivotal location, was sentenced to 23 years. David Payne was given 19.5 years for navigating the channel. Christopher Owen and Matthew Smale received 15 and 14 years respectively for their ground-level facilitation. In total, the syndicate was locked away for an astounding 133 years. A potentially devastating empire was dismantled in its infancy. What is your perspective on these historic sentences? Do they perfectly match the scale of the crime? Share your thoughts below, and if you appreciate researched investigative deep dives, ensure you subscribe. There is always another baffling mystery waiting to be uncovered.